Hi, Fox. How are you? I, yeah, this new streaming service that I'm still, oh, I'm still getting a hang of it. I think there are a couple of things it can do that I don't know how to do them, and I will work out. But basically, good, good. And hi, Shadow Eyes. How's it going? But one thing I've noticed sometimes it takes a long time from when I click the go live button until it actually goes live. And sometimes it does it really quickly and catches me by surprise. Tonight was one of the ones where it did it quite quickly and caught me by surprise a little bit. Hello, Miss Foxification. How are you? Uh, Let me just check a thing. Yep, okay. That's all good. That is all well and good, and we're off and running. And I'm trying a new beverage tonight. That's not bad. Hmm, that's interesting. Um, Not sponsored, but look, there's a new flavor of Pepsi Max. My favorite, probably killing me with chemicals drink, creaming soda, which is very sweet. Well, the illusion of sweet because there's no sugar in it. Um, and I had someone tell me it would go well with vodka, so I decided to mix it with vodka. It's not bad. It's not bad. Hey, Justin, how are you? Oh yes, Miss Foxification. How about the stabbing in Sydney? Someone decided. I don't think the full facts have come out yet, but I think what's going to come out is before he went on the randoms, he murdered, I'm going to guess, his current or former domestic partner, maybe a family member. And then he ran down the street and stabbed some people. And yeah, some blokes just Oz'd it up and yeah, no, knocked him down and held him down with a milk crate on his head, which is innovative. But yeah, stopped him from hurting anyone. Ms. Foxification, you said there's a report that he did actually kill someone, and saying she was a sex worker, but was he known to her or was she a random target? Um, yes, yes, he's all kinds of not good, basically, but he's been settled down. So yeah, I know the woman he murdered was found in an apartment complex. So I don't know if he was known to her or um, if she was just unfortunate. But yeah, what a piece of shit. And but yes, kudos to the lads who decided to tackle him and bring him down before he could hurt anyone else. Because yeah, there's yeah, you never tell with people like that what their motivation is. Was he going to try for suicide by cop, or was he really, going off a deep end and want to hurt or kill other people? Who knows? Aussie Gun Bunny back home in Townsville. Good on you. Oh, fuck. You know about Epstein killed himself. You see, in honor of that, I like this. Look, the Velvet La Chance cocktail. I have to look that up because I don't play uh, Skyrim. I'm aware of it. Velvet La Chance cocktail. What's the internet say is that on Reddit? Uh, no, I don't want notifications. Thank you. Fuck off. Click to expand. All right, I'm gonna look at this. It's what's it? The Velvet Lachance, inspired by Skyrim. Okay, putting blackberries in it, brandy. So muddling the blackberries into brandy and then straining it. Spicy honey simple syrup and red wine. 3 ounces of it. It's just going to taste like red wine. Um, I could come up with my own variation. I'm not fond of wine, as in I don't actually drink it at all. So yeah. Hey, Batman Sport, how's it going? Oh yeah, Aussie Gun Buddy. The meme about milk crates is there's a stabbing in Sydney, and some lads tackled the dude with the knife and held him down with a milk crate on his head till the old Bill came and took him away. So yeah, it's pretty fascinating because apparently there was a fire truck near where the guy was running, and the guy had jumped up on top of a car, and the fireys had just grabbed their axes off the truck. It was saying, "Settle the fuck down, son," and the dude looked like he wanted to start something, and these dudes who worked in the office, they apparently knocked him down with a chair from a cafe and then just like landed on him and had a milk crate over his head, which was an interesting touch. But yes, he appears to have murdered a woman, stabbed someone else, and whether he intended to keep stabbing people or he was going to do the old suicide by cop thing, who knows? I actually didn't see the video, Miss Foxification. Not surprised there's video, everyone has phones. The guy I did see an interview with, there were like four guys, they all worked together and they decided to take him down. They were just saying, yeah, like most people were running away and we just chased him and took him down. Safa, 36-year-old doctor from Melbourne. I don't know what that's in reference to, as I've watched a lot of people die in the world, and I don't really keep up with all of them. So, Fox, you made that one use blueberries, went for simple syrup. Spicy because it has jalapenos. You put jalapeno. So, okay, I don't play Skyrim, so is that drink meant to be spicy? I occasionally make at least mildly spicy ones. I wouldn't put that much red wine in a cocktail because I do not like red wine. I might put like that because that was like one shot of brandy and uh, 3 shots of wine. I wouldn't do that. I might do one shot of wine or port. I'd be more likely to use. I would be more likely to use port than red wine. Um, just a personal taste thing. So there, a tree killed her in Carlton Park. I did not hear uh, that story. This Foxification, you reckon this is another example of capsicum spray or mace should be legal for civilians? I actually don't completely disagree with that. Uh, I think just people being people, if it was legal to carry, capsicum spray, mace equivalents, to me, it's stating the bleeding obvious. It would be used in assaults. Uh, I just know a significant number, particularly women, I know, but blokes too, myself not least among them, uh, would feel safer if they were able to carry it. So the only thing is, what most people don't fully acknowledge with weapons of any sort, there's two things you have to take on. One is you have to be prepared for it to be used against you, because that very often happens. Like your own weapon weapon being taken from you and used against you happens very often. And two, and this is the more disturbing part, if you want to minimize the chances of that happening, you basically have to use it preemptively. So before you're put in an extreme position, like before you are literally attacked, you have to take on the person before they do it. Uh, and that can backfire quite spectacularly. But yeah, as I know a lot of people would feel much safer if they were legally allowed something like capsicum spray, mace, etc. Uh, and yes, Miss Oxcation, you do raise a very good point. One punch can kill, and we see examples of it. I do remember a funny story. This is an experience from a few years ago. Someone I knew, and she was she was a fairly radical feminist, as a few people I know. And she actually had, I don't remember if it was mace or capsicum spray, but she basically brought it in illegally from the States and carried it with her because she thought she needed it. But everyone noticed she got really antsy because she hadn't had occasion to use it, and she was getting really antsy about the fact she hadn't used it, and she ended up using it on this drunk guy at a bus stop, and it was a crowded bus stop, and I mean the guy was obnoxious but hadn't done anything that you could call an assault, but that was the closest she'd come to it, and he was just getting staggering around a bit, and she just put and maced him in the face, and he went down, and she got charged with a series of criminal offences. So you always have to be aware of things like that. Ahsoka, you used to watch me ages ago. Nice, thank you. Thank you for dropping by and seeing what I'm doing today. And hey, Keiju. Oh, the Epstein. I mean, I put the thing about Epstein as a joke in the title of this stream, but that is a fascinating thing because it's arguably the single highest profile criminal case going on in the US because, I mean, Epstein was directly linked to Trump, was directly linked to Bill Clinton, was directly linked to dozens of other uh, wealthy and influential individuals. And it is known beyond a doubt Epstein organized sexual escapades with underage girls. Uh, so, and yeah, he's died in his jail cell. It's been called suicide, which on one level is potentially convenient for a lot of people, but only if there's no further investigation into evidence that prosecutors already have from his thing. So here's my honest thought. By far, the most likely circumstance is he did commit suicide. And this one's fascinating to me because the most rational people you know are jumping full on into conspiracy theories. People who normally deride and mock conspiracy theories are full on getting into he was whacked. To me, common sense suggests the most likely circumstance is he did commit suicide, but he shouldn't have been able to. He shouldn't have been put in a situation where he could commit suicide. He should have been put in a situation where suicide essentially wasn't possible. And he'd already been injured, whether that was an attack from someone else or an attempt at suicide or an attempt for attention. The idea that he'd been taken off suicide watch seems bizarre. So to me, it really does fall into either someone is mind-blowingly incompetent, or it was a conspiracy and he was deliberately put in a situation where he could commit suicide and he was allowed to commit suicide. Uh, the incompetence thing, a lot of people go, oh, really? You're going to fall for that? Talk to someone who works in the American criminal justice system, and they will tell you straight away the prisons are a fucking nightmare. They put almost no effort into protecting prisoners from violent attacks from other prisoners and preventing self-harm by prisoners. The death rate in American prisons is quite astronomical, both from homicide and suicide. And I think it is quite possible that Epstein is dead because of gross incompetence and gross negligence. And the people who say that couldn't happen basically have no understanding of how the prison system works in the US. Now, I still think who's responsible for that gross incompetence and gross negligence, if that's found to be the case, and I'm not saying it is the case, I just honestly think it's the most likely, whoever is responsible for that gross incompetence, gross negligence, should face charges. Now, and again, to my mind, the second most likely outcome is he did die by suicide, but he was allowed to be in a situation like basically the powerful people who wanted him dead bribed the right people and made sure Epstein was in a situation where suicide was an option. And that is a conspiracy. That's a criminal conspiracy if that happened. And then the one that everyone's jumping to, well, Clintons had him killed, which is still not a thing. The Clintons don't have people killed. That's a ridiculous bullshit thing the Republicans came up with in the 90s. And they have spent 2 decades peddling that shit. And they have not got one fucking iota of evidence to back it up. It's absolutely farcical to suggest the Clintons go around murdering people. They're not that competent. And then the other one was, Trump had him killed. Again, possible, but honestly not very likely. And then any of the other, dozens of wealthy, influential people who stood to be implicated by Epstein paid someone to have him killed. Those things are possible, but the people leaping 100% to definitely conspiracy, definitely murder, blah, blah, blah. It's bullshit. It's not impossible, but you have all these people saying that was definitely the case, and that's a stupid thing to say. But it's not impossible, and there's no way it's the most likely outcome. Death by suicide is the most likely scenario, but to my mind, that points to either, as I said, gross negligence and incompetence, or a criminal conspiracy to put Epstein in a situation where suicide was possible. So, yeah, that's my 2 cents. Mind you, I was listening to a couple of Dirtbag Left podcasts, a few different ones like Chapo Trap House and a couple of others, ones that were recorded just before Epstein died. And they were hilarious because they were making jokes about it, like, him getting whacked by someone. And they were like, that won't happen. Like, Epstein won't suicide. That won't happen. But they were like, oh my God, wouldn't it be fucking wild if he did die in prison? And they were treating it like a joke. And some of these were recorded only a day or 2 before he died. To me, it was quite funny listening to these people essentially joking about what they regarded as a far too wild scenario of the evil pedophile cartel cabal conspiracy that Epstein's part of, having him killed, and then he died And like, oh my God. But yeah, so my my guesses, and they are only guesses, um, for the scenario is most likely suicide that was only possible because of gross incompetence and negligence. Second most likely is a criminal conspiracy that conspired to put Epstein in a circumstance where suicide was possible in the hope he'd take the hint. Uh, Third most likely is someone did kill him. And to my mind, there are so many people who wanted to. I think third most likely is killed by someone not linked with Trump, not linked with the Clintons. Then after that, and it's a long way down, I really don't think Trump or his cronies would have done it. A long way down the list of probability is Trump and cronies whacking him. And at the very far reaches of implausibility is the Clintons had someone whack him. None of those are impossible. That's just my take on the most likely scenarios. Hey, Loogie, why not come in late and say titty sprinkles? Why not indeed? Oh, God, everything about it's suspicious. Literally everything about Epstein's death is suspicious. I think one of the more interesting things about Epstein is he didn't have any family, so there was no one to disappoint and shame. Uh, but why I think he was most likely responsible for his own death is that he knew he'd finally run out of luck. Like he just because of gross corruption, even though he was convicted of really quite serious uh, sex crimes, he got barely a slap on the wrist, and that everyone involved in that should be facing criminal charges. Quite honestly. But this time, I think it was probably very clear to him that shit's over, your life is over, uh, one way or another. You are almost certainly going to die in prison. Uh, so that's why I think the most likely scenario is he's responsible for his own death. Um, but the conspiracies are possible. It's kind of fascinating. Americans in particular cannot let go of this. Americans cannot give themselves distance from it and say, okay, after the initial weirdness of it, you really have to admit suicide's the most likely scenario. But which doesn't mean there should be a really thorough investigation because the suspicion levels are way too fucking high. Like they are so high. There definitely needs to be like one of the most thorough investigations into this. But yeah, I don't really go with the conspiracies. Oh, RC said that's a fun one. You're saying he didn't have any business in hedge funds. If you want an absolutely fascinating story, you get into how Epstein ever got rich because it doesn't make any sense. It's like he's been involved in really weird criminal grifts his whole life. He he got a teaching job at a really prestigious school that he wasn't qualified for. Uh, and then the legend of Epstein says that uh, at a parent teacher night, one of the parents was the head of the Bear Stearns investment bank and decided he was so brilliant he should work at Bear Stearns. Because, yeah, that happens all the time, right? And then, he left Bear Stearns and there's very strong suspicion he was fired because um, criminal goings ons were detected. And then suddenly this billionaire gives him huge amounts of money to start a hedge fund. And one of the more popular conspiracy theories about how Epstein got so rich, and I think there's a lot of logic to this. We are 99.999% likely to never know the truth of this. But a plausible one is because Epstein had always had, organized these the sexual exploitation of minors. He'd invited rich and powerful people to parties that included the sexual exploitation of minors. And the very popular theory is that was an extortion racket. But extortion is very difficult to make a lot of money from. You can make some money. You can maybe even make hundreds of thousands of dollars from extortion. But Epstein ended up with billions. You can't make billions from extortion because you've got to show where it came from. But then, hey presto, with no experience and no real reason, Epstein ends up with a hedge fund with people pouring billions of dollars into it. And then, he just takes his 5% cut, and suddenly all these wealthy people are paying. That would be a very good way to cover the fact that you were extorting people for millions and millions of dollars, force them to put their money in your hedge fund where you just take a 5% cut, just normal business. There's no reason for them to give you the money, but who cares? And again, that's a conspiracy theory, but seems a reasonably plausible one to me. But we'll never know. We'll never know. These people don't give up their fucking secrets. Oh yeah, yeah. See, that's another good one. The temple on Epstein's Island, among the many things Epstein owned with all these billions, was an island in the Caribbean, and there's this weird fucking temple, and my God, it just really looks like Epstein was running freaky, eyes wide shut sex parties. Such a fucking strange story that we will probably never know the full truth of. We know Epstein was a terrible sex offender, exploited minors. Boo-hoo, he's dead. Don't miss him. But he included so many powerful and wealthy people in this shit. It's really quite mind-boggling. But yeah, if you want really trippy shit, research Jeffrey Epstein because it's so fucking weird. Oh yes. See, where's his procurer? I know you don't pronounce the name Ghislaine, but it's a funny sounding name. Maxwell, daughter of British plutocrat Richard Maxwell, who died at sea, falling off a boat. It's weird. And you really, seriously, this stuff is conspiracy theory gold because so many of the people involved in the Epstein world worked for espionage agencies. Like his original mentor worked for the OSS in World War II. That's William Barr's father. So many people like Ghislaine Maxwell's dad worked for the OSS and then for the British Secret Service. There's people were involved in spy agencies, the Mossad in Israel, CIA in America, MI6, etc. in England. It's just this whole thing. It's like spies, billionaires, politicians, and bizarre, depraved sex cults. It's amazing. It is such an amazing concoction of conspiracy red meat. And it's what and now anyone who just wants to make it partisan, people on the right saying it's the Clintons because Bill Clinton was neck deep in this shit. I don't think anyone's ever going to get indictable evidence on Clinton, but who knows? And if you want to be on the left and be partisan about it, Trump is neck deep in this shit. It's absolutely bizarre who was involved, because Epstein donated millions and millions and millions of dollars to various scientific research things. And so he had a whole bunch of respected scientists being character witnesses for him. Like Stephen fucking Hawking went to these bizarre sex parties with him. It's just like, it is insane. This is the most amazing conspiracy. And here's the thing. One way or the other, no matter what the nature of Epstein's death, this thing is a conspiracy in the grandest sense of the world. There is absolutely no doubt. I mean, we know he's a convicted sex offender. He was about to get convicted of much more severe sex offences than he had been in the past. Everyone knew he was having these sex parties. Everyone knew he was exploiting underage girls in these things. Everyone knew he was taking the rich, powerful, and influential to these parties. Now, I'm not going to say beyond any doubt Clinton was definitely having sex with underage girls. Trump was definitely having sex with underage girls. These scientists, these other millionaires, oh my God, Alan Dershowitz. Fuck, this guy who's published articles, saying the age of consent should be as low as 14, and he went to parties with a child sex criminal, an abuser of children. And it's just like, yeah, dude, you probably personally, definitely not guilty of statutory rape and sex offences against minors. Probably just because you palled around with the guy that we all know did that, and you've published articles saying that the age of consent should be much lower. You probably didn't sexually exploit minors. So, oh my God. It's just like, it's just a question of how much information find. Like, what did the investigators find when they raided his properties? Did they get incriminating evidence on other people, or was it only incriminating evidence on Epstein? Who knows? Oh, another one. The list of people who are incriminated and being involved in his bullshit. Prince Andrew from the British royal family. Again, not joking, not a rumor. Prince Andrew was involved in parties with Epstein. Again, the fact that Prince Andrew went to parties with Epstein is not proof that he got into kinky sex at these parties, is not proof that he sexually abused minors at any of these parties. Just that we know that was Epstein's film. And it's the list of people who associated with, partied with, and defended Epstein is absolutely fucking mind-blowing. And yet, minimum 2 US presidents, including the sitting one. I was like, holy fucking shit. It's absolutely mind-blowing. Oh, Lukey, you think the NSA are trying to cut out my stream? Oh, it could happen, buddy. It could happen. They don't want anyone telling the truth here. Oh, they only have to listen to that. Hey, Adele, yes, I agree. People associated with that fucking creep disgust me. I just think the right has been, in America, has been really surprised because they thought they were playing the, well, to use an unintentional pun, they thought their trump card is you can't go after Trump for this because it will expose Bill Clinton as well. And virtually everyone, if you've got evidence on Clinton, fire that motherfucker into the sun. I literally have not heard anyone defending Clinton over this. Uh, I just heard people going, man, if Clinton's guilty, if there's evidence Clinton's guilty, fuck that guy. Fuck him. And because Clinton's, you look at the way Clinton used language in the Monica Lewinsky affair, and the language used in his statement about Epstein was so similar. So fucking similar. There was a line he used that said something about he knew nothing about this. This is to me what made me go, Clinton's lying. Because his statement about Epstein said he knew nothing about Epstein's terrible crimes. And I went, oh, that's bullshit. Everyone knew. Everyone associated with Epstein knew what he was doing. And for Clinton to put that statement out saying knew nothing of Epstein's terrible crimes is like, he's lying. He's just lying. I was like, oh my God. But yeah, it's really, well, I mean, yeah, Clinton shitty lies, Adele. This is the thing that fascinated me. And I'll just get into some unfortunately graphic detail here about the impeachment hearings with Clinton. The interesting thing with Clinton, if I understood what was in um, the report again, was that creepy guy who did the investigation, Ken Starr, the Starr report? Um, uh, Although Clinton, did get involved with the sexy shenanigans with Monica Lewinsky, he never ejaculated into her mouth or vagina. The stories goes when he was about ready to come, he'd rush. There was a sink there in his private room, and he'd finish by whacking off into the sink. And you notice when they got him in uh, the questioning, the phrase he used was, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And I think in Clinton's mind, he wasn't actually lying because he used very specific language, said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. And when you read about his weird behavior in that he only came by whacking off into a sink, he thinks that means he didn't fully consummate sex with her. And there's this weird fucking control thing he had going on. He's a shitty liar. Um, but yeah, he's a shitty, shitty liar. Um, but yes, to me, the thing that stands out that says Clinton's lying about what he was involved with Epstein was saying knew nothing of Epstein's terrible crimes because fucking everyone knew. Everyone in his circles knew. So if Clinton has fetishes, I'm really sure he does. Clinton's just a fucking hornbag. Um, but yeah, he's just Clinton's a classic power tripper, a classic narcissistic power tripper, and everyone around him through his whole career, governor onwards, is just like he just thought it was due to him. Quite honestly, that hey, he was a powerful, sexy man. All these women wanted to have sex with him, so he was going to do it. And Mr. I know, isn't it funny looking back? Because Monica Lewinsky handles herself really well these days. Like, Monica Lewinsky became a joke. Even, feminists were hanging shit on Monica Lewinsky. But she's come out of it much better than Clinton. At the time, she had much worse treatment than Clinton. But these days, in my humble opinion, she has far more credibility than Clinton. In fact, I'd look very askance at anyone who thought Bill Clinton had more credibility than Monica Lewinsky. I would think uh, dodgy as fuck. So if you're surprised Hillary didn't divorce him, that's a power thing. She had always planned to run for president, and she knew a divorced woman would not make it to the presidency. That's just a power thing. Her and Bilbo, it's just uh, uh, all about the power. That's always driven their decisions. So you don't like feminists hanging shit on Bernie Sanders? I think Bernie Sanders has some very severe failings, notably on the topic of intersectionality. I don't think he has been very good with understanding the situation of anyone who's not a white dude. He's trying. I think he's trying, but he has been very bad. I don't mean by comparison. I don't mean he's Trump bad with feminism and race. Clearly, he's a fucking paragon of virtue next to Trump. But I think, on his basic things of social justice and, worker rights and stuff that I'm 100% on board with, there's a huge gap in my mind between how good he is on the core, democratic socialism ideals and any sort of intersectional politics, like how does that relate to women? How does that relate to people of color? I think he has exhibited quite a blind spot in the past, and I'm sure he's worked at it. I'm sure he's getting better, but I'm not completely on board with Bernie. Skull Village, you got Epstein phone number. I assume it goes to voicemail. Because ain't no one answering Epstein's phone right now. Let's think. I was thinking who's more corrupt, Bill or Hillary? They're inseparable. They are a team. They have done stuff as a team throughout the political career, and it was mainly, of course, Bill front and center in the politics, and Hillary had her go at president, and whoops, messed it up. Yeah, I don't think there's any point in trying to separate them. They've been part of the same machine for decades. Oh, sorry, you said his pilot's phone number. Is that the dude who was ratting people out? No, that was his butler, wasn't it? His butler said he had Epstein's black book. And I think that's the other thing. The other thing that makes the Epstein thing perfect as a conspiracy is the number of people involved who died. It is the most amazing red meat conspiracy I have ever seen. I think it stands alone. Like all other conspiracies look super fucking lame next to the Epstein conspiracy now. It's absolutely wild. Musical animator. The pilot is the YouTuber Global Girl. I do not know. I have not looked that deeply into it. Yes, Skull, I heard the Black Book was released both as scans, and apparently the handwriting is a little difficult to understand. So some helpful people did a text translation of the Black Book as well. I was listening to a podcast where they were just going through the Black Book and saying the names that were in it, and it was fucking mind-blowing. Absolutely wild. It's such an over-the-top story. It's amazing. My God, this story is so fucking weird. Dr. Boom, who's Epstein before the thing? Oh man, look it up. It is an absolutely amazing story. Um, his whole life's like a fucking conspiracy. He got a job at a really high-end private school that he was completely unqualified for. He got jobs in investment banks he was unqualified for. There seems to be non-stop criminal behavior from him. And then he read in this hedge fund, which is where he made his billions from. And there's a very popular theory that that was an extortion front because he was running these sex parties that included the exploitation of underage girls, and then blackmailing all the rich people that he hooked up with underage girls. But rather than just paying blackmail, he said, no, you have to put $1 billion into my hedge fund and I'll just take 5%. So it kind of looks legit. I mean, seriously, it's absolutely fascinating. If you don't like reading, oh my God, just look up podcasts on Epstein. It's absolutely amazing. Recently on the socials, I asked people for suggestions for podcasts, and there were a couple of good ones, but one that I've really gotten into and listened to a lot of episodes on is called uh, Behind the Bastards. This guy does investigation to tell you the stories you don't know about the worst people in history. And it's really engaging and quite fascinating. And he did a two-parter on Jeffrey Epstein a couple of months ago. So that is a very easy way to get a really good background on Jeffrey Epstein's backstory. Find the podcast Behind the Bastards and listen to the Epstein episodes. It's absolutely amazing. Dr. Obama, Julia Gillard has a podcast. I did not know that. I might have to look that up. I have a bit of time for Julia Gillard. Music over, you looked up Global Girl. Used to have a big channel with Gulfstream and Bombardier cockpit videos. Oh no, all the videos are deleted or unavailable now. The conspiracy deepens. Scarl, you say Epstein's past using encryption. Well and good. While the pilot of the Lolita Express would have stories to tell, the thing is, there have been so many people involved in this shit with Epstein. There will be a lot of people with stories to tell. And we will never know who's telling the truth and who isn't. The world is fucking wild. The world was already weird and wild and crazy. And fuck me. I know Justin, I have not seen The Loudest Voice yet. That's on one of the subscription services, isn't it? I think it's on one that I know. Dr. Brown, well, yeah, unlike Pizzagate, Epstein stuff through. This is literally beyond doubt. Epstein is a sex criminal, an exploiter of underage girls, and he very clearly invited rich and powerful people to sex parties. And the common belief is he blackmailed them, and that's how he got his billions. Justin, which one's it on? The Loudest Voice? Is that Stan or in Australia? I don't know which one it's on. Skull, that's okay. I don't really want the information, although thank you for your kind offer. There's going to be so much information and misinformation coming up. I don't know. Justin, sorry, what are you saying? Safa, is Howard the word Abbott the worst PM ever? Abbott was the worst at the job, I think. So I think he's worse from that perspective in that he was just the worst at the job, but he actually didn't do that much damage because he's very, very, very bad at the job. I, without hesitation, would nominate John Howard as not just the worst Prime Minister, but the worst thing to happen to Australia in the last 50 years. Whichever way you look at it, like he gave away billions, if not trillions of dollars that should have gone to the Australian people and gave it away to vested interests in mining companies. He mainstreamed racism in Australian politics, and thanks to the gutlessness of the Labor Party, we're still dealing with racism being the centerpiece of Australian politics. Howard was just fucking garbage. He was just fucking garbage. He ran down the economy. He ran down the country's infrastructure. Howard was just a piece of shit. This country is so fucking lucky Kevin Rudd beat him, because if Howard was still Prime Minister when the global financial crisis hit, he would not have done any of the economic stimulus stuff that Rudd did. He would not have done any of the government building, the government investment, like building stuff for schools and community things, which kept thousands and thousands and thousands of people in work and kept the economy going. Howard would have thrown us to the fucking wolves and left people in the gutters. This country would be in fucking ruins if Howard had been Prime Minister when the global financial crisis hit. As it stands, we've got scummo Prime Minister, and there's likely to be severe economic problems in the next couple of years, and that cunt will feed us to the fucking wolves. We will be so fucked if there's a really, and this is an extremely likely thing. It is extremely likely there will be a severe global economic downturn in the next 2 years. And with scummo in charge, we are fucked. We are so fucked. Dr. Bob, that's a good thought. If Keating had won his second election and Hanson was in the House of Reps, he would have savaged her. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right that he would have savaged her. Safra, it's not just Scummo who doesn't want to increase New Start. Labor won't fucking stick their necks on the line and say New Start should be increased. It's bullshit. I've got the feeling I want to do a whole video on how it looks like we're well on the way to the next horrible thing in Australia, which is just fucking class warfare. The government and their stooges I can never work out if it's the government and their stooges in the media, or the media, particularly like the Murdoch media and their stooges in the government. I can't work out who's like the publicity outlet for who. When I look at the way, as I said, particularly the Murdoch media just trumpets this evil fucking arch conservative line, I can't work out if they're doing publicity for the government or the government's doing publicity for them. It's so very hard to tell who's leading and who's following. Dr. Obama, don't fucking talk. Okay, that was going to come out really harshly, and I'm not harsh at you. I'm harsh at Labor. Don't tell me to read between the media lies. Get some cunt from Labor to stand up front and centre and say unequivocally New Start needs to go up. They haven't. They're fucking cowards. Albanese is a worthless, snivelling piece of shit. Fuck that guy. I mean, since the election, I've just been so disappointed in the depths of how pathetic Labor has managed to be. Fucking garbage. Yeah. That's a good point. The Reserve Bank and interest rates are now under 1%. If they're seriously considering a negative interest, it's like the whole thing, the economy's a fucking game of three card Monty. Every time I think about how bad the economy is, like I think about how bad things got in the US when their housing market collapsed, and that still hasn't happened to Australia. I've been hearing for the last 10 years the Australian housing market is a bubble and can't be sustained, and it keeps going. I wish it was a bubble, and I wish it would burst, and I wish fucking bottom would fall out of it, and then fucking anyone who wasn't up to their neck in debt could afford it. I don't know. It's like capitalism is so shit. Dr. Brahma, it does not count for shit if an individual person in Labor says, I think raising New Start is a good idea. The fucking leadership of the Labor Party have to stand the fuck up and say it. And they're not, because Albanese is a fucking spineless piece of shit. I thought he was better than Shorten. I had no time for Shorten. I thought Albanese would be a much better leader, and I'm absolutely unable to process how fucking pathetic Albanese is. It's contemptible. He's just such a sniveling. He's going to drive me to the fucking Greens, which I never thought would happen. Albanese is just fucking terrible. Needs to get his head out of his ass. This ridiculous bullshit if we're Liberal Party light, people might vote for us. Get fucked, you piece of garbage. Fucking stand for something. Honestly. So it's okay. Andrew Yang, one of the billion US presidential candidates who's not going to go anywhere, talking about human-centered capitalism. Yeah, he's got that what does it go by? The universal basic income, which I think is not a completely terrible idea. Justin Shorten definitely shouldn't return to the leadership because Shorten's a fucking piece of shit. I thought Albanese would be better, and he's worse. And I have no fucking. I cannot fathom how bad the leadership of the Labor Party is at reading the public. Like Shorten was convinced, and in his defense, almost everyone was convinced that him just playing the I'm not that guy card would win him an election. And I'm pretty happy that I was on record repeatedly as saying that was bullshit and Australia deserved better. Australia deserved to be inspired by the Labor Party, not just this I'm not that guy bullshit. And against literally all the odds, Shorten managed to lose the election. And now Albanese, who, like I said, I had always thought would be better than Shorten, is so much fucking worse. He's shit. He's fucking contemptible. And I also refuse to call Albanese Elbow. Fuck you and creating your own nicknames to be blokey bloke politicians. Fuck that noise. I'm not calling Scummo ScoMo. And also, just because the way that works, ScoMo is the first part of his first name and the first part of his last name. So if Albanese wants to play the nickname game, we have to do it the same way. The first part's of Anthony Albanese. He's anal. Okay? That's his nickname. It's not Albo, it's anal. Fuck that guy. Safa, who's this Richard Miles guy? I don't know. Who's this Richard Miles guy? What's the context for that? I don't know the context of your question. That is not a name I am familiar with. If I do a Google search, will I become more familiar? There is a Professor Richard Miles. There's a British historian. Is that who you're talking about? The historian? The professor? I've not heard of him. What's he doing? I don't know what he's doing. Oh, Marles. Is it Marles? He's the deputy Labour leader. There you go. That's how little attention I've been paying to Labour. I did not know that. Ashoka, blood damn, dude, I'm with you with Plibbers, Tanya Plibersek. I would back her over pretty much anyone who's in the Labour. But she did the thing of, thanks for thinking of me. I don't want to be a leader. I want to have more time for my family, so I'm not even putting myself forward for it. Hey, Noog, how's it going? Oh my God, my drink's empty. Hey, my non-sponsored thing, I'm trying Pepsi Max creaming soda flavor. What is it like as a mixer? I'm going to try it with whiskey. And I'm going to get a fresh block of ice because that's not chilled. Because I can. I just can. I can do that. All right. I'm just going to chuck this bit of ice out. Get a new great big chunky chunk of ice. Great big chunky chunk of ice. Put that in there. Big old ice chunk. I think I'll put a bottle of bourbon. Still got my big bottle of bourbon here. So as bourbon and cola is quite popular. Justin, what about Dan Andrews for federal leader? I am quite fond of Dan Andrews as premier. He's hardly without flaw. He's a politician and has said and done some dodgy things, but you know, the on the overall balance sheet, I think he's a net positive, which I don't think about too many politicians in Australia in leadership positions. So I don't know. Maybe you'll move into federal. Who knows? Who knows? No, do you want to stop the ice caps from melting using the ice from my fridge? I do have great big old chunks of ice in there. That is true. All right, this ought to be interesting. The very sweet creaming soda Pepsi Max. I feel weird saying it's very sweet because that is illusory. Or is it? See, because it's not sugar, but there are things besides sugar that's sweet. So if a chemical makes me think that is sweet like sugar, then it is sweet. Is this a philosophical or a scientific question? Oh, geez, that's a head scratcher. If something artificially creates the sensation of sweetness, is that a less valid sweetness than sugar? There's something to ponder. That's one for the ages. Should I stop throwing this disclaimer in saying it isn't really sweet? It just has the illusion of being sweet, but sweet is just a sensation. So if I get the sensation of sweetness, it's sweet, isn't it? Isn't it? Is it? Is it? I don't know. There you go. I'm posing you very big philosophical questions. And now I'm going to see what this tastes like with whiskey. Not bad, not bad at all. Actually takes the edge off some of the sweetness. I haven't decided yet how much. I like this a fair bit. I don't really just so sure. Noog, you've got to call your scientist. Oh, good. Excellent. Noog's going to call a scientist, which is just fucking wicked, to find out if artificial sweetness is the same as natural sweetness. Safa, you are right that Melbourne weather tends to be milder than all of the country areas. Country areas in Victoria tend to be colder in winter and hotter in summer. But we get wild, unsettled weather. You change a lot. Dr. Obama, are you trying to tell me that official Labor Party policy is that New Start should be raised? Because that is literally the only fucking thing that counts. If they have declared it as policy. Okay, I'm finding old things saying that Shorten said he would increase it. Okay, here we go. July 15, which is what I assume you're talking about. Labor's urging the coalition to boost it. All in the government court. We call on the government to take into account well-founded, motivated concerns. Call on them to respond in good faith. While declining to nominate a dollar figure, Chalmers said the government needed to take up pre-election plan to review. Okay. That, to me, is a cop-out. They are copping out until they say this is official Labor Party policy. If and when we get power, New Start will be raised by this amount, and we're going to lobby the government to do that in the meantime. They're just being fucking gutless, and I have no fucking idea. Sorry, I have no time for gutless politicians. Fuck them. Fuck them all. Justin, I've heard about the idea that we're all simulated. That idea has occupied the minds of philosophers for all of recorded history, and probably beyond that. Because because you do get cultures who believe the dreaming is as real as the waking world. There are some American Native people who had very strong beliefs that the dreaming world was as real as the physical world. Indigenous Australians believed our reality was created in the dreaming and continues to be created in the dreaming. But yeah, people have as far as we know, people have always pondered, how do we know this isn't a dream? How do we know we're not someone else's dream? How do I know I'm not dreaming now? Or how do I know I'm not part of someone else's dream? And this is often being called brain in a jar hypothesis. Once, we get to the stage where medicine and science is advanced, that you can achieve all sorts of normal things. You get people saying like, well, how do I know I'm not a brain in a jar receiving a bunch of stimulus that tricks me into thinking because all the physical world is stimulus. All the world around us is our brain interpreting stimulus that it receives. So if you had absolute complete understanding of how brains worked, theoretically, brain in a jar could be stimulated in a way that it believed it was out in the physical world. And how would you know? That's the more modern interpretation, but variations of this have existed, so far as we know, always. Like some of the earliest recorded human histories, the Greek philosophers talked about this. So I think it's probably safe to assume that this has been something humans have thought about uh, since forever. Is this a dream or is this real life? What is the difference? How could I know for sure whether this is reality or a dream? Or when we got more advanced science, how do we know this isn't the Matrix? How do we know this isn't a simulation? How do we know I'm not a brain in a jar? And I don't think anyone's ever adequately answered that, because the more we come to understand that the physical world is just our brain responding to stimulus. If there was a way to artificially create that stimulus in our brain, how the fuck would we know? And this is so when you get people, uh, you know, people who aren't neurotypical, people whose brains process things differently, people whose brains arguably process stimulus incorrectly, in a faulty manner, in a less enlightened age, people we would call insane. Uh, but to them, all of their actions make perfect sense because they are responding to stimulus from their brain. They are just getting stimulus that we don't understand, that we don't share, that we don't experience. So we go, oh, they're crazy. And it's not totally unrelated. It's still science. Yes, I did see the thing about that shark that they were estimating was over 500 years old. The only way they could know for sure is to kill it, and they don't want to do that because uh, I think you can, whether you cut its teeth or bones, you can actually see the growth rings. And in a dead shark, you would be able to tell how old it is. So they did find this shark that they thought was really, really, really old. But of course, they didn't want to kill it because it was fascinating. So they don't know for sure. Kaiji, you want to be a D&D magician. Learn prestidigitation. Give water the flavor of Coke. Be set for life. There would be, yes. But then you'd probably have to deal with orcs as well. If the magic in D&D was true, you'd have to deal with the orcs and whatnot as well. Ashoka, look, you're absolutely right. Hypnosis is the thing. Although there are, different views of hypnosis and what it does and if it does anything. Uh, no, good point. Sharks technically don't have bones; they have cartilage. Um, They do have skeletons, don't they? You could argue whether that's cartilage or bone. I don't know. I am not a shark expert. If their teeth are cartilage, they're pretty fucking tough cartilage. I'm just saying. Um, okay, here's an interesting brain thing. You see, brains are just so absurdly easy to fool. Like I used one of the fabulous features in this StreamYard streaming thing of sharing my screen and showing a video of what looked like an arrow as a three-dimensional shape, as a physical shape someone had made. And when you look at it from a particular angle, it appears to be an arrow pointing to the right. And no matter how you turn it, the arrow's always pointing to the right. And it was basically your brain's really fucking easy to fool. Optical illusions, how easy it is to make it appear that a picture is moving when it's not, that something's in full color when it's black and white but has some colored lines on it, and your brain fills in the blanks. And as I said, another one's Mrs. Angry is a psychologist counselor, and she has a couple of techniques to help people with various traumas and other conditions. One's called tapping, and the other is EMDR. Tapping is also known as EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques, which sounds stupid. EMDR is a much more scientific sounding one. They're different, but to me, they're similar in that they change how your brain perceives things. Like the World Health Organization actually recommends EMDR for dealing with severe trauma like PTSD. Because it's weird, because what EMDR does is change how your brain stores memories. Uh, so it's like you don't forget the incident that created trauma in your brain, but done properly, EMDR can reduce or actually eliminate the traumatic aspects of the memory. It's absolutely amazing stuff. And EFT, which there are some videos on my channel, me doing EFT, Mrs. Angry guiding me in EFT, and besides using that for being stressed, upset, having various emotional traumas and whatnot. You can also use EFT for food things. It's like if there and this blows my mind that it works in what seems to be two opposite ways. Is one, if there's a food that's good for you but you don't like because it's gross, like vegetables. I'm super bad with vegetables, right? And uh, you start off with a vegetable, and I've got this on video. I think I've done it on video with raw onion, capsicum, and carrot, and cucumber, even pears. I didn't like pears, the fruit. So start off, you take a bite of it and go, "What was that like?" And it was like that was like a 0 out of 10. That was so gross. I don't want to eat that. And it's like, okay, you do this tapping thing. You got to do here and here, and gradually you come to like the thing that you didn't like. It is so strange because it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. How could just tapping different parts of yourself, you do this, tapping different parts while basically thinking about the thing, how could that make you like something that, like, I'm over 50 and I never liked these vegetables. How do you change the habits of 5 decades inside of half an hour? But it fucking works. It's amazing. And the other one is it works in what seems to be the opposite way with cravings. If there's something that you can't do without, like, oh, I can't resist these yummy chips or I can't resist this chocolate, you do the same thing and it becomes weirdly easy to resist it. If you're ever the sort of person like me, there's some snacks, I must eat them just because they're there. You do this tapping thing and you end up being able to resist the urge to eat these snacks with it's just weird. It's just like, oh, I just don't want to do it. I just don't want to eat. When previously you just be like, fuck yeah, can't get enough. And it can be all sorts of, some people works for coffee. Some people's like, oh no, I have to have 3 Happy Meals a day. I have to have the, McDonald's every lunchtime. And these things that you had no control over, suddenly you have control over them. It's mind blowing. It's absolutely amazing. But for my mind, the important lesson to take away is human brains are fucking stupid. Your brain is so easy to manipulate. So easy. And I mean this on so many different levels. Like these things that I was talking about then, and propaganda. People who think that they're resistant to advertising or propaganda. You're not. And in fact, the people who assert that advertising and propaganda doesn't work on them are probably even more susceptible to it. And mob hysteria, when whole crowds or whole populations, whole civilizations give in to hysteria. Conspiracy theories, the way when you're not in the conspiracy theory group, when you look at what these people say is absolutely true, you just go, you're so fucking stupid. What the fuck do you mean? That is obviously not. Obviously, the earth is not flat. Obviously, we went to the moon. But these people just believe it. And what the fuck is that about? Brains are just so easy to manipulate. It's absurd how easy brains are to manipulate. It's absurd how unreliable brains are. It's wild. Justin, do I think everyone should be allowed to vote? Yes. Yes, I do. Because while, yeah, it's very easy to go, well, they shouldn't be able to do that. As soon as you start to place provisos on voting, say this person is more or less fit to vote than this person, you start to sink into tyranny. And hello, Environmental Coffee House. How are you? It's be morning for you, evening for me. Um, yeah, it's a slippery slope. The whole deciding who should and shouldn't be allowed to vote gets into very dodgy area. PBR, the Earth's fat. Yes, that is a good call. The Earth is not flat; it's fat. Speaking as a fat bastard member of the Earth, I think that's a fair comment. Uh, it would be disingenuous of me to not acknowledge that, quite honestly. Um, sure they when I get trolled, going, "You fat prick," and you're fat, so your opinion's worthless. Well, it's an interesting parallel you draw. I mean, it's certainly pointless of me to try and pretend I'm not a fat bastard because reality would get in the way. Um, but yeah, it is very weird some of the things trolls say and think they're making a very big point. Very weird. Justin, do I think we should lower the voting age? I think we need to repair democracy somewhat in general. We're better off in Australia than they are in the US. Like, US democracy is just fucked. It's a fucking failed state. Their whole system is corrupted to the point that almost seems beyond hope. Uh, yeah, there are a few other things I would fix about democracy before I pondered lowering the voting age. So it is interesting that there is a generally held belief that lowering the voting age would increase the vote for more progressive policies and more progressive politicians. Obviously, not all young people are more progressive. You get a lot of conservative young people, uh, but it is generally held that younger people broadly are more progressive. But I think if we were going to make big decisions about changing voting, changing democracy, there are a few things I would do before lowering the voting age. I would work on how to stop the media from spreading lies, how to stop everything from just being fucking sound bites and make it more substantive conversations. If I was in the US, I would be working very hard at getting corporate money out of politics because US politics has been completely corrupted by corporate money. It is a problem in Australia. It's less of a problem in Australia than it is in the US. But generally, it's something we need to look out for. Just you think if you can think for yourself, should be allowed to vote. The thing is, there's no objective measurement for how rational is someone, which is why we use arbitrary limits like age and other things. Uh, and an arbitrary limit like age is absolutely imperfect, is absolutely flawed. I think you could easily find someone who is 16 and is more engaged and has a deeper understanding of issues and has more validity behind their political views than a 50-year-old person, but we don't have any way to measure it. So we use arbitrary guidelines, which are horribly imprecise. Yes, Environment Coffeehouse, Citizens United, undoubtedly the worst law in the US. Yes. Clapping for your media. Hello from Germany. Yes, I am your Thunder from Down Under, and you are on holiday. Congratulations to you. I hope you are enjoying your holidays. You can tell I'm not on holidays because these are my work clothes, my pristine. It's not really this pristine, but it flares out so much on my webcam. It makes my shirt look flawlessly white. And honestly, in the real world, um, my shirt is less than flawlessly white. But got my suspenders on and my white work shirt because I couldn't be bothered getting changed after I came home from work. Sometimes I get changed. Sometimes I put my pajamas on. Sometimes I do the live streams in, Hugh Hefner style in my dressing gown. Not tonight, just wearing my work clothes. Here's a secret. Sometimes I do it without pants on and you just don't know. You can tell I do have pants on though because my suspenders are very firmly in place. They'd be flopping around a bit if I wasn't wearing pants. No. That's information you didn't really need, isn't it? Miss Foxy, slow thinkers keep right. Yeah, it is. How the world is fucking weird. I am almost never listen to Joe Rogan because I think he's a wanker and I think he doesn't take responsibility and I think he is doing the world generally a great disservice when he gives a platform to fucking fascists and racists and acts like they're just another person with an opinion. I think he needs to take more fucking responsibility than he does. But he did have Bernie Sanders on recently, and I've listened to the first part of that podcast with Bernie Sanders because he is someone who is just going to let Bernie Sanders talk, which is interesting. And one of the things they have talked about in the bit I've listened to is how that TV debate format is shit, where people get, less than a minute to make a cogent point. It's fucking garbage. Left wing talks. You knew I'd hate Joe Rogan. It's not so much that I hate Joe Rogan. I just think he's irresponsible. I think it's incredibly irresponsible to give fucking fascists an uncritical platform. I think that's deeply fucking irresponsible. Justin, Paul Murray on Sky News. Paul Murray is a fucking fascist. Paul Murray is a lying fucking piece of shit. Paul Murray is everyone on fucking Sky is a piece of shit. Ashoka, you think it's better to take a neutral position? Personal opinion. My opinion is that neutrality is bullshit. There is no such thing as neutrality. You either actively fight oppression, you acquiesce to oppression, or you actively support oppression. I think I'm going to hold this finger up for the one. That's for Joe Rogan. I think the best you can say about Joe Rogan is he actively acquiesces to oppression. He does not fight against oppression. He uses this bullshit of saying, I'm being neutral. That it is not neutral to say, well, I gave Bernie Sanders a platform, but I also gave a fucking Nazi a platform. I also gave a white supremacist a platform. No, you don't fucking give platforms to Nazis. That is the epitome of false equivalence. The idea of, okay, well, Nazi, anti-Nazi, clearly those views are equally valid. Get well and truly fucked, Joe Rogan. Yeah, I just think he's irresponsible. And I honestly think professing neutrality is bullshit, because neutrality is saying if oppression exists, I'm not going to fight against it. If I don't fight against oppression, I'm enabling oppression. It's as simple as that. Left-wing dorks, I do not calm down. That is not my aesthetic. My aesthetic is not being calm. Thanks, Adele. I agree. Being passive, not taking action, it's the same as being an active part of the persecution of minorities. That is my belief as well. So that's a good one, Charlie. It's disturbing how common that view is. People who's like, oh, I'm not going to actively speak out against fascism, but I'm really upset at those anti-fascists. Yes. Koji, I'm not surprised Sam Sater said the same thing. I am not hugely into Sam Sater. I've watched a few clips on YouTube of the Majority Report. But yeah, it's a point of view. I'm not going to have a heart attack. You bottle your stress up, and you'll have a heart attack. If you have controlled cathartic release of your stress, you're less likely to have a heart attack. That is science, because I am a scientist, I am a scientician, and I declare the Angry Aussie School of Science is being angry is healthy. So that's a big question. Does Murdoch own the Republicans? I don't know. Again, the relationship between Fox News and the American Republican Party. Is Fox News the publicity wing of the Republican Party, or are the Republican Party the publicity wing of Fox News? I don't know. Left-wing dogs, what do I think of Isaac Butterfield? I do not know a lot about him. I will give him kudos for speaking out against Fraser Anning. I will give him kudos for that because he really unequivocally spoke out against Fraser Anning. Kudos for that. Generally, I think he falls into a particular stereotype of an intellectually lazy white guy. That's just my opinion. Romy Koyas, you were in a hospital with a peptic ulcer, but you eat clean. I think angry is a rational reaction to the. Oh, speaking of hospital, no one's actually asked. People usually ask what's happening with AIDSy. He's in hospital. He fell down some stairs and broke bones. So I probably need to visit him there. I need to find time to visit him in the hospital. I think he cracked a couple ribs, did a compound fracture in one rib, and broke his collarbone. And I don't know how long he's going to be in hospital, but I think he managed to severely fuck himself up by falling down some stairs. I talked to him today, basically. So he is in a hospital with a bunch of broken bones. So he's all fucked up. So that's not good. So I'll try and visit him in hospital. Maybe I'll take something in and record something with him. Left-wing talks. No, I do not like Isaac Butterfield. Look, I'll say I did watch a video, or at least there was like a 2-hour video on YouTube, and I think I listened to about half of it. Some dude, and he was interviewing 3 comedians. It was Neil Kohatka, Friendly Geordies, whatever his real name is, and Isaac Butterfield. And they were all very pally. Most of it I was okay with, but what came across to me, my personal opinion of it, they're all very lazy when it came to questions like feminism and minority rights and whatnot. And they all fell into stereotypes of how there's like, they'd call me a social. I think it's reasonable to say they would all call me a social justice warrior. Um, now, Jordan Shanks, Friendly Geordies, on a lot of key political issues, our views are almost the same. I think, and I'm kind of putting words into his mouth here, so I'd accept it if he told me I was wrong. But I think where we would diverge is what is known as intersectional politics. I get the impression he has no time for framing things from a feminist perspective, and I'm thinking about racial politics. If he were to tell me I was wrong, I would listen to him. But the impression I get from what I've seen of him is from he has very little time for seeing things from a feminist viewpoint, from seeing things through the filter of racial politics. He doesn't think that's valid. He's really just into sort of old school, sort of trade union left wing views. That's what I've taken from things I've seen of him. If he were to tell me I was wrong, I would listen to him. Isaac Butterfield, from what I've seen, is right wing. Is very much anti feminist. Doesn't seem like a horrible person, but I heard some things in this interview that I thought was super fucking complacent and super self-centered. Not trying to say I'm any sort of saint or paragon of virtue, but I feel like I can see very clear lines where I diverge from their worldview. Oh shit! See, environmental coffee house. You're in the US. I feel so bad for you. You're having problems in the medical world, insurance world. The insurance system and medical system in the US is so fucked. The Australian system is far from perfect, but so much better than the US system. So, Safa, I am super pro union, while at the same time, uh, definitely being able to acknowledge when individuals in the union movement are shitheads and when they exploit things for their own gains. But I am very, 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 very pro union. Fuck the bosses. I would never cross a picket line. Uh, I'm a white collar. I'm not in a union, right? I'm a contract worker. From a lot of perspectives, I'm the enemy from unions. But if I were to rock up to a workplace and there was a union picket, and I would ask them, I would talk to them and say, what's the purpose of the picket? And if the pickets was basically involved in my work, if they said the people who are employing you are doing this shit to permanent employees, and this is a protest against that, I would not cross that picket line. If their picket was something that was nothing to do with what I was doing, I would go like, cool. I don't work for the people you're picketing against. I'm not involved in the thing you're picketing against. Morally, you have my complete support, but I'm just going to go into work because my work is not associated with what you're doing, and I won't get, because I'm a contractor, I won't get paid if I don't go into work. But I would never cross a picket line. Left Dwarf, do I think Isaac Butterfield and Friendly Geordies only do their shit to make money from their subscribers? I don't know. I do get the impression that both of them say things they truly believe. I don't know enough about them to know how much of what they do is performance and how much of what they do is deeply held. But I get the impression that both of them tell you what they really think. I could easily be wrong, but I get the impression that they both tell you what they really think. You think they do it for clickbait? Dude, you might be right. You absolutely might be right. I do not know enough about either of them to say anything more definite than that. Environmental coffee house. See, I can empathise with what you're saying. You say you have a long-term disability because my mate AZ's had chronic illness for like 15, 20 years. So, having a close friend uh, who's had to deal with chronic illness for pretty much 20 years, I know how much, even in Australia, and again, our system is so much better than what you have to deal with. But once you have chronic illness and disability, fuck, it makes life difficult. And people don't understand how hard everyday things are when you have a disability. And this counts whether it's your mental health that's limiting your ability to function, whether it's your physical health that's limiting your ability to function, whether you have an obvious physical disability or you have a hidden physical disability. And people just don't fucking get how hard that makes things. Jeffrey Dorks, sorry, just saying he's an AZ autistic. He's Aspie, so he's on the spectrum. AZ is definitely on the spectrum, and he has a bunch of physical illnesses as well. He's fantastic. He's neuroatypical and has a bunch of physical disabilities as well, so that's cool. Oh, wow. That's wild, misfoxication. People getting travel insurance and flying somewhere just so they have medical cover and they get oh my god, that's so. But I've heard stories of people in the US basically realizing the health system is so fucked in the US and so expensive. It's cheaper for them to fly to another country, live there for 6 months, pay the costs for medical care in that country, get surgery, etc., and then go back to America. And so they also get a 6-month holiday as well as getting the medical treatment, and they're financially better off than if they'd stayed in the US. It's fucking wild. Fox, fellow Aspie and AIDSy. Yeah, and AIDSy got his diagnosis relatively late, like in his mid-20s. He didn't even know he was dyslexic until his early mid-20s. And the Aspie diagnosis came later, I think. Different dogs. Okay, you've had personal experience with how bad social services and medical services are for people with disability. It is really fucking hard. People, you. This is what blows my mind in America. Even really wealthy people with 6 and even 7-figure incomes in the US can be completely fucking wiped out by a medical emergency. The health and insurance system in America is so bad. Like, they get tens of thousands of bankruptcies every single year because of medical expenses. And obviously, if you have less money, you get affected worse by it. But the system is so fucking bad that people on 6 and even 7-figure incomes can be wiped out by a single medical emergency. It's absolutely fucking mind-blowing that can happen. Here's the thing: how many bankruptcies do we get in Australia because of medical bills? Zero, basically none. There's probably some. I'm rounding down. I'm using statistical mathematics, rounding down. Basically, no one in Australia goes bankrupt because of medical emergencies. And in the US, it's tens of thousands of people every fucking year. It's just bizarre. Um, I do have private health insurance here in Australia, and that's probably because I'm paranoid. Had a bad run of cancer in my family, killed my dad, my mum, my older sister, my uncle, my aunt had a double mastectomy. Uh, so I'm kind of paranoid. And so if something really bad happens to me, I want to be able to go into hospital straight away, um, and get treatment. Uh, so it's not necessarily a good idea. I might be better off not having it, but I try to max it. See, I get new glasses every year, and I've been getting physio for the last year and a half, and subsidised fairly heavily by my private health insurance. Um, so, it's not all bad. I haven't had any major medical things. I haven't had any major hospital stays because of my thing, but I am a little bit paranoid. So, yeah. Joking. You think if Yang doesn't get elected president of the United States, you're fucked as a species. From that perspective, you're fucked as a species. Yang doesn't stand a chance. Yang is no way, no how. It would be humorous if I'm completely wrong. But no, accept it. Yang's not becoming US president. No way. So, do I have ambulance cover? Yes, my private health insurance includes ambulance cover. It's the thing you should have in Australia. That's not covered by our public health system. Ambulance cover. If you're in an emergency and you have no ambulance cover and you get taken to hospital by an ambulance, you could have a bill in the hundreds or even thousands of dollars. So you should get ambulance cover if you're in Australia, because the ambulance service deserves to be supported. Environmental Coffee House has a video on Medicare for all. Probably well worth watching. Thank you for letting us know. Left-wing dorks, we're saying a lot of workers in the industry are not qualified, have no idea what they're doing, can't get a doctor appointment done. Dude, there are so many fucking problems with systems. Adele, you're saying in Queensland it's part of the power bill. I didn't know that. I thought in most places in Australia you needed to have ambulance, and it's not expensive. I mean, if I do a very quick search for my own state, okay, ambulance cover Australia wide from $40 a year. Why wouldn't you get it? Complete ambulance cover from $40 a year. Why wouldn't you get it? You need it. Ashoka, Elon Musk and Silicon Valley people endorsed Yang. Yeah, maybe, dude. He's not going to be president. If I'm wrong, if he gets the nomination, you get to laugh at me. Okay, I'm going way up there and making an absolute statement that there's no way Yang gets the Democratic nomination. There's no way he gets president. Even if he doesn't win president, if he gets the Democratic nomination, you get to laugh at me. Here's the thing. I'm not one of those people who tries to pretend a thing I said doesn't count. And I saw a bunch of lefties after Labor lost the last election going, oh, this doesn't hurt me. This doesn't hurt me. Oh, because blah, 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 blah. It's like, I'll get fucked. Anyone on the right who wants to laugh at me for being upset that Labor lost the last election, you get to laugh at me, because I was upset Labor lost the last election. I really didn't think that would happen. I was quite upset by the result. So if you want to, you get to laugh at me. I'm not going to do any equivocation. I'm not going to say, because I'm actually a contractor with my own business, I'm better off under the Liberals. I am, but I'm still really pissed off at the result, and I'm saddened by the result, and I was upset by the result. And so you get to laugh at me. So, yeah, Ashoka, Yang gets the nomination. You get to laugh at me. Justin, you want Sanders and Warren. I reckon I could get behind Sanders and Warren. Warren's a bit more mainstream, but has these, left-wing views, whereas Sanders is a bit outside the mainstream. That would be a really interesting Batman and Robin, Sanders and Warren. So, yeah. Sorry. Oh my God. I couldn't help but laugh. That's not the sort of thing I should laugh at the left wing door. If you had a mental health social worker call you a fuckhead and a loser to your face, that person should be out of a job. I mean, I think you probably said something to provoke them, but they still should be more professional than that. That is not really on. Even if you were a jerk to them, that is not really. They shouldn't use that language. They should do something else like they can't work. No, if that happened, that person is not suited to their job, quite honestly. Even if you were a dick to them, they need. See, Safra, that's one of the big reasons Trump won, because the fucking morons who voted for him had this completely incorrect idea that he was outside the system. Yeah, he wasn't a tradition. He wasn't a traditional part of the Republican Party, and it's pretty fucking amazing how he destroyed the establishment of the Republican Party. In fact, that was almost a bigger victory for him than winning the presidential election with the help of the Electoral College against Hillary Clinton. Noog, you have to drop out. Thanks for dropping by, man. Because, in the race against Clinton, he only beat one person. In the race to get the Republican nomination, he beat a dozen people, and the entire fucking machinery of the Republican Party machine. They were against him. To an extent, that was a bigger victory than beating Clinton. Environmental Coffee House. Tulsi Gabbard. No, there's very nasty shit about Tulsi Gabbard. Absolutely no way I would support her. I'm doing a quick Google search. Bad things about Tulsi Gabbard, because I've heard super bad things about her. So here's headline: Tulsi Gabbard is not your friend. I think she's super conservative, isn't she? She's like really anti-Islamist. She's from Hawaii, for those who know. She supported really fucking scary right-wing people. And look at this. She's been a progressive voice in the House. So she points some things. But yeah, she's been against same-sex marriage. She's been very anti-Islamist. She supported some scary right-wing people. Being anti-abortion. Yeah, no, I would not support Tulsi Gabbard. There's just like dodgy shit in her views. Ashoka, Trump's a gangster. He's a criminal. There is absolutely no doubt Trump's a criminal. Justin, you think the demographic changes work against the Republicans? Yeah, but they're super good at gerrymandering and voter suppression. So they're delaying their decline with their criminality. So it seems to be a thing around the world that rural areas are more conservative than urban areas. It's interesting, something that's almost universal uh, travel, meeting different people tends to make you less conservative and less bigoted. People who don't travel and don't meet different people tend to be more conservative and more bigoted. And outside of that thing, that doesn't mean they're fundamentally bad people, but their bigotry is definitely bad. It's not like you get these people because they don't know any better. They don't even realize they've fallen into really unfounded stereotypes outside of their views on race relations. They might be very good people. They might put in a lot of like community service. They might put in a lot of effort to help people less well off than themselves. But and ignorance leads to bigotry. So yeah, you're absolutely right. This is not universal. You're saying your stepdad's the biggest bigot you know in Travis life. There's not a universal thing. Uh, I am talking in very broad terms that travel tends to make people less bigoted and less narrow-minded. But some people who never travel and live in rural areas their whole life will be very open-minded and very supportive and very opposed to bigotry. And some people who are very cosmopolitan and educated and well-traveled will be horrible, bigoted pieces of shit. Um, it is important to be aware of your own uh, prejudices and biases. And I work, I, I like to think, and maybe I'm fooling myself, I like to think I work pretty hard in being aware of my own prejudices and preconceptions. There's a concept called metacognition, and that means thinking about the way you think. And broadly, bigoted people tend to have very poor metacognition. They never question their impulses. They never question the conclusions they draw. They never question their biases. Um, People who work on their metacognition tend to be more open-minded, tend to have more progressive views. Again, and that is still using broad brushstrokes. There will be exceptions to both of those rules, but that tends to be very important in determining people's worldview, the degree of metacognition they engage in, thinking about the way you think, uh, and being trying to be conscious of the way you think. Trying to be conscious of how you drew your conclusions. My personal opinion is very important. Uh, and so I try to be conscious of why am I thinking in a particular way? How did I come to that conclusion? What were my preconceptions and biases that informed that conclusion? Preconceptions and biases are not always incorrect, uh, but it is important, in my not very humble opinion, to be able to question those biases and question those preconceptions and be conscious of them. Left-wing dorks. Here's a good question. Have I thought racists? Oh my god! Oh, when I was God, Jesus Christ, dude! I grew up in such a racist, homophobic, misogynist environment, and I, no doubt, I was really racist, really homophobic, really misogynist. I need to own that and accept that. That was part of the environment I grew up in. I was absolutely an awful racist, absolutely really homophobic. But probably the misogyny wasn't as pronounced because it wasn't such a big thing. But I was definitely really, really racist. Definitely, oh, so homophobic. Um, and where I grew up, country New South Wales, racism was primarily focused on Indigenous Australians. There were a lot of Aboriginal people in town where I grew up. And it's fear. You come to real, at least I came to realize at a certain point, most of the racism was born out of fear. It's as simple as that. Everyone, everyone I knew, like if you got, and I actually saw this happen a couple of times when I was at school. If you got a group of white kids together and just having a conversation, if the conversation went on long enough, they would always end up talking about how one of their biggest fears was the Aboriginal kids were going to beat them up. Um, and it never happened. There were fights. I got in fights. I remember getting in fight with an Aboriginal guy. Uh, Fights happened, but actually getting really, we were all really paranoid. We thought, oh, a gang of Aboriginal guys uh, would beat us up, and it never happened. You say, okay, what's the most racist thing I said? The most homophobic thing I thought? I used pretty much every racist slur you can think of. Seriously, where I grew up, there were two Chinese families. They were cousins. There was like I'm trying to think. It's a bigger population and it's a bit more diverse than when I was there. Now the town where I grew up, but it was a relatively small town when I grew up. There were like two Chinese families, like two Italian families. They were cousins. There's like one Greek family that I knew of. Like there were so few families that weren't Anglo or Aboriginal. Uh, I look. There's no point me pretending otherwise. I have used every racial slur that you can think of. What's the most homophobic thing I thought? Just uh, this is not a thing. I said I do remember a guy at school saying it. We had a Danish exchange student, and she was so much more worldly than we were. I remember her saying she had just found out that homosexuality was still at this point. This was in the 80s. I think homosexuality was still a criminal offence everywhere in Australia. Again, someone who knows history and law better than me might correct me, but I know it was in New South Wales where I was. I think homosexuality was still on the criminal statutes everywhere in Australia. And this Danish exchange student, we were in year 12, so like 17, 18. And she was like, oh my God, I just fucking learned that homosexuality is still a crime here. That is so shit. And I remember one of the guys saying, what are you talking about? That's one of the best laws we've got. And I don't think I really thought that, but I was definitely homophobic. Here's a friend. I did have a guy I was friends with who was quite effeminate, and it turns out he was gay. I didn't know at the time he was gay, and I did have some of my other friends um, have a go at me and make fun of me because I was friends with this guy that they thought was effeminate and gay. And I got angry. In fact, I almost knocked one guy's block off because he was saying that I was, oh, why don't you just run up and give him a kiss? And because in my mind, he wasn't gay. I just liked him and I thought he was a nice guy. It turns out he was gay. Um, uh, but I wanted to punch this guy in the head for saying I'd be friends with someone who was gay, and don't deride my friend and say he's gay. Turns out he was gay, and I probably would have had a very hard time dealing with if he had come out as gay at school. And I've got to be honest, I think more likely than not, I would have stopped being friends with him if he came out. I don't know for sure. Maybe that would have been a wake up for me, and I would have gone, that doesn't stop me wanting to be friends with him. But I need to be honest and say, at that point, if he had come out as gay, there's a fairly high chance I would have reacted super negatively to that and not wanted to be friends with him. And yeah, is that whole thing? Someone might be his friend. No, seriously, a significant chunk of my best friends are gay or bi. Um, I'm friends with a lot of people on social media who are gay or bi or trans. Uh, it's not even something I don't even question. Like every now and then I find out someone who I'm friends with, either in real life or through social media, is gay or bi or trans or poly or whatnot. And I'm like, oh, I had no idea because I don't care. It isn't important to me. I'm still your friend. I'm still 100% supportive of you because that was never a part of the friendship. The friendship wasn't conditional on you fitting in a particular thing. But when I was younger, oh my God, very different, very different. And that's why I try not to be too harsh when I hear stories about teenagers being dickheads and saying or doing something that seems horribly racist or horribly homophobic or horribly transphobic, because I was a fucking shithead as a teenager. Left-wing dorks. What do I think makes people racist? Fear. Honestly, and I'm not breaking new ground by saying that. I'm looking at myself and the people I grew up with and the studies I've seen. Bigotry generally is about fear. It's about fear of the unknown. It's fear of the other. Uh, and I think when you can grow beyond that fear, you're less likely to have those bigotries. You're less likely to be racist, homophobic, transphobic, religiously bigoted, any of those things. I thoroughly believe that all bigotry is based in fear. And when you can recognize that and grow beyond that, bigotry will be less the thing. That's my give everyone a great big hug moment to go out on. Bigotry is based in fear. When you can grow beyond your fear, you are far less likely to be bigoted in anything. That's the thing. So, yes, love everyone. Except the pedophiles. They're shitheads. Why threw that in? Anyway, look after yourself, one and all. It is, in fact, after 10 o'clock now. I'm going to get to bed. Thank you for sharing time with me. There seems to have been more. It's just the regulars in the chat. I haven't really seen any completely new faces in the chat, but I've been looking at the number of viewers, and it has been a bit higher than usual. I think it's because I put Jeffrey Epstein in the name of it. I should use more clickbaity titles, quite honestly. I should definitely do more clickbaity titles. But anyway, if anyone's watched this and never seen me before, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be back. I do a couple of live streams a week. I usually do a couple of pre-recorded videos a week as well. I have some interesting ideas for pre-recorded videos I'll try and work on. So if you're a regular, you might see some videos that are stylistically a little different to what I've been doing lately. I'd be keen to get your feedback on them. I hope you enjoy them. I might get a bit more experimental. That's what I'm saying. A bit more experimental stylistically. But look after yourself, one and all. Thank you so much for spending the time to hang out with me. I hope you're all well. I hope you look after yourselves. I hope to see you again soon. But I will say goodbye for now. Bye! And I've clicked the